Good evening and welcome to the meeting of the Planning Committee. I am Councillor Ted Hollick, Vice Chair of the Planning Committee, and I'll be chairing this meeting in the absence of the Chair. I would like to welcome members of the committee, ward councillors, speakers in attendance, and members of the press and public. Before we start, I would like to propose that Councillor Findlay sits alongside me in the Vice Chair seat to assist me. Would someone like to assist me in the Vice Chair seat to assist? Councillor Findlay. Would someone like to second, please? Thank you. Councillor Findlay. Do we have any apologies for absence, lateness or substitutions, please, Becky? Do we have any apologies for absence,
from Councillors Claire Allen with Councillor Morell substituting, Councillor Boothby with Councillor Cook substituting, Councillor Joyce Crooks with Councillor Cartwright substituting, Councillor Fleming with Councillor Paul Williams substituting, Councillor Mullaney with Councillor Findlay substituting, and from Councillor Richard Allen and Councillor Bill Crooks. Councillor Mullaney with Councillor Findlay substituting, and from Councillor Richard Allen and Councillor Bill Crooks.
Minutes of the last meeting. Are you happy that they are an accurate record of the last meeting? Minutes of the last meeting. Would someone like to move the minutes? They are an accurate record of the last meeting. Seconder. Would someone like to move the minutes? The motion has been moved and seconded. Could also those in favour of approving the minutes please raise their hand now and keep it raised until Becky indicates that she has counted. Raise their hand now and keep it raised until Becky indicates that she has counted. Could all those against now raise their hands? Thank you. Thank you. Could all those against now raise their hands? The minutes are therefore approved. Thank you. Urgent business. Therefore approved. We have no urgent business. Do we have any declarations of interest? We have no urgent business. I would like to declare on item 10, I am a Groovy Parish Councillor, but have not discussed this with anyone or the Planning Committee, so I'm here with an open mind. Does anyone else have any interest to declare? Does anyone else have any interest to declare? We have no questions in accordance with Procedure Rule 12. We have no questions in accordance with Procedure Item 6. Decisions delegated at the previous meeting. Could the lead officer please update us? Decisions delegated at the previous meeting.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Planning Committee. Of the items considered at the last meeting, one item was deferred. That will come back hopefully in June. And then one item is still outstanding. So that was minute item 336 for Land North of Deepdale Farm, Littlethwaite, Burbage. We are still awaiting final confirmation from County Council Ecology before we look to issue that decision. But I can confirm that all other decisions have been issued. Thank you. Before we look to issue that decision. But I can confirm that all other decisions have been issued.
We will be taking the applications in the order on the agenda. We will be taking the item 7, page 7, application 22-01233-FUL, Houghton House, Sheepy Road, Sibson. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please? Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please?
This application relates to Houghton House, a Grade 2 listed building within a conservation area in the hamlet of Sibson. Slide 1 shows an aerial view of the site, and slide 2 shows the red line site boundary, which now excludes the grass verges adjacent to the highway. An application for 4 new dwellings on the site was deferred by the committee in July last year, as set out in the published minutes that are set out at paragraph 2.1 of the main report. And that was to allow for discussions with the applicant around reducing the proposal to 3 dwellings to enable sufficient standard parking provision. While those discussions took place and the parking spaces were widened to the standard size required, the number of dwellings did not reduce. At committee in September, the application was refused on 2 grounds: overdevelopment of the site and additional traffic being detrimental to the conservation area. The reasons for refusal are now set out in full in the late items report. For clarity, the main differences between the refused scheme and the current scheme are set out at paragraph 3.10 of the main report, and in summary are a reduction from 4 to 3 dwellings, The red line excluding the grass verges. Each dwelling is now detached. The contemporary style of the former dwellings to the rear of the site is now replaced with a more traditional approach, and both the two-bed properties are now feature the distinctive eyebrow dormer features found on other dwellings within the conservation area. The current application is for 3 new dwellings, and this slide 3 shows the revised site layout, and slide 4 shows the revised parking provision, with the extra space required where a parking space is adjacent to a fence or a wall. Multiple objections have been received from the occupiers of 20 different local addresses, and Sheepsey Parish Council has also objected to the scheme, and their objection is set out in full at paragraph 7.1 of the main report. The late items report confirms that the Highway Authority has no objection to the proposed development. The next slide, slide 5, shows the roof plan of the site, and slide 6 shows the previously refused scheme. So you'll see there the 3 dwellings which were joined at first floor to the back of the site. Slide 7 shows the floor plans for the larger dwelling, which has 3 bedrooms, and slide 8 shows the elevations. This next slide shows the floor plans of the other 2 dwellings, and slide 10 the elevations, which, as you can see, top right there, both have the distinctive eyebrow dormer features. Slide 11 shows the proposed landscaping, and this next slide, the refuse and recycling plan. The next 3 slides have been added at the request of the Parish Council and show the effect of heavy rain on the road outside the site. So that's the site looking into the site. That's the site looking into the site on the top left, so the road in front, and then a little bit further down, so that's the grass verge that's retained, and then the wall is of the neighbouring dwelling, Kingsford House. Slide 16 is an extract from the applicant's drainage statement. And the final slides show computer-generated images of the proposed development, with the final 2 were generated before the latest revisions to the scheme, which brought the dwelling behind the dwelling that Chris is highlighting. That has moved forward on the amended plans to deal with issues of privacy and overlooking caused by existing windows in the existing house to the rear. As is set out in the main and late items reports, Sibson suffers from problems with both foul and surface water systems, and during the processing of the current application, objections have focused on drainage issues, which have been the subject of considerable discussion. Ultimately, it is considered that the 2 conditions, condition 10 on the main report and condition 18 on the late items report, can deal appropriately with drainage issues. It is acknowledged that objectors do not agree with officers on this point, but it is considered that development of this infill site within Sibson should not be prevented on drainage grounds, given the views of the Council's drainage officer and correspondence from Severn Trent accepting a 1 litre per second discharge into the foul sewer. Given these drainage issues, while the recommendation remains for approval, subject to the conditions set out in both the main report and the late items report, and subject to delegation to the head of planning regarding the detailed wording of the conditions, it is considered appropriate that all bodies concerned with drainage matters are consulted on the detailed drainage proposals. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have 2 objectors and 2 agents to speak on this item. Mr Jones and Mr Fawkes, as objectors you will speak first, and you may share the 5 minutes as you wish. Please start when you are ready. And you may share the 5 minutes
Thank you,
as you
Chairman.
wish.
I'm Ross Jones.
Please start when you are ready.
I'm going to speak first. Thank you, Chairman. I'm Ross Jones. Fact. Sipson is designated as a rural hamlet, meaning development should be confined to only infill sustainable housing. Fact. This new proposal remains contrived over development. The agent has confirmed that the reduction in the amount of floor space proposed is only 9 square metres. Fact. This overdevelopment will necessitate on-street parking. Fact. On-street parking in Sipson is on pavement parking because the street is a narrow country lane. Fact. Sipson's sewage system has a lack of capacity with no timescale or funding in place for necessary improvements. Fact. Sewage already has to be regularly released into the river by the Severn Trent Water Authority. Fact. Severn Trent Water have confirmed that if you refuse consent due to the management of surface water, they would support that decision. Fact. The houses immediately below the development site flood. Fact. The Parish Council comprehensively object by reference to the legally binding policies of the Sheepey Parish Neighbourhood Plan. Having heard what your planning officer has just said, I make reference to Condition 18 to show how ridiculous this is. Condition 18 suggests that the houses will not be occupied until such time as site drainage details have been provided and approved. Once the houses are built, the flooding is occurring. Once the houses are built, flooding the houses just below it. How can it be allowed to be built but not occupied? How does that solve the problem? I now pass you across, if I could, to Steve, who is a neighbour who actually suffers from the flooding.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Fawkes, and I've been a resident of Long Road, Sipson, since 1974. Before I start, let me tell you I've reached that stage where words that I'm looking for tend to disappear, just as I'm about to say them, so I hope you'll excuse me if I refer extensively to my notes. Hopefully, you will have received an email outlining the CV of Dr Rob Ward, the Chair of Sheepey Parish Council. I felt it was important to show Dr Ward's credentials, as his background makes a good fit with one of our major objections, which is the possible exacerbation of flooding situations. Rob has asked me to tell you that he's now retired from the many and varied posts mentioned, but he did say this. Given the genuine parishioner concerns about flood risk, clarification of the conditions about runoff from the site is very important. This is not to denigrate the opinions of the experts who have contributed to this issue, but if you will please listen to the actuality of living in Long Road, you will see why it is of such great importance to us. No matter the time of the year, we are always aware of flash flood risk. We have a petrol-driven pump and sandbags kept handy at all times, just in case. When we go on holiday, we're always looking at the weather to see what conditions are like in case Sipson gets a flood. Recently, the Environment Agency designated our small area of the village as a high flash flood risk. Global warming is making the weather far more erratic and dramatic. We understand it will only get worse. So you can see that the speeding up of the delivery of surface water from Horton House is of great concern. No one has actually calculated the actual size of the underground tanks which will be required. What if the size is unable to be built because of the lack of room? There is a condition that no one can occupy a new house until the drainage conditions have been satisfied. What use is a condition that allows a house to be built and flood us, but not be occupied? The maintenance schedule for the such system are really onerous, so no one will bother doing it, and no one will be able to make them. The whole situation could be solved by admitting one thing. The site is being overdeveloped. Sibson is a hamlet and has no need for housing except infill. To have two decent-sized houses would in one sweep stop the on-street parking concerns, give more permeable surfaces, more room for underground suds tanks, less sewage connections to our overburdened system, and be a much more attractive site that AFL architects could be proud of. Sorry?
Time's nearly up, please.
Sorry? We know the government has a presumption for planning policy, but in this case, it is overdevelopment. What is the point of citizens spending their time compiling the neighbourhood plan if their wishes are overridden for no good reason? Surely the whole point of the neighbourhood plan is to give recourse to local thought and design to make sure that small hamlets like Sibson are not abused by unsustainable development. Please give an ear to the local people who intend to carry on living and supporting and being the Sibson community. Please exercise the powers of the Neighbourhood Plan 2021 made, plus the authority of, I believe, 20 objections to refuse this planning permission. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
To refuse this planning permission.
Mr. Williams and Mr. Smith, please start when you are ready. Mr. Williams and Mr. Smith, please start when you are ready.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. Thank you, Chair. My name is Matthew Williams, and I'm here in my capacity as planning consultant advising on the current application. At the outset, I'd like to thank your officers for providing a very professional service throughout the preparation and determination of the application. The guidance has been consistent, helpful, and well considered, and deals with facts. This has resulted in a strong recommendation for approval. I have reviewed the history of the scheme and note members' previous request to remove one house to reduce parking on site and therefore concerns about highway safety due to overdevelopment. The revised proposal has responded to this request. In addition, all garden spacing and technical amenity requirements are now met. The architectural approach has reverted to a traditional aesthetic, and significant work has been undertaken to demonstrate that the scheme will reduce surface water runoff, that the Parish Council has been understandably concerned about. I note that the Officer Update Report confirms that County Highways has assessed the scheme on the correct layout for approval and have no highway concerns, be that in terms of safety or internal manoeuvring. Standard conditions have been requested. I note the concerns of the Parish Council and local residents that they consider drainage matters have been assessed on an erroneous basis. Again, the update report addresses this, but in summary I would comment as follows. 1. The drainage work originally made the assumption that at present the surface water from the site runs uncontrolled into a highway drain that connects to the combined sewer further down Shippey Road. The Parish Council has since advised that this is not the case, and the water runs to a culvert which frequently blocks. Therefore, their view is any response from Severn Trent is based on wrong evidence and cannot be relied upon. However, I can confirm that through email correspondence with the case officer at Severn Trent on 20th January 2023, she confirmed that because we could not evidence that the surface water connected into their system at present, they could not take that into consideration in the calculations. Accordingly, because we could not demonstrate a surface water connection, the case officer at Severn Trent then stated that after assessing the network performance and careful consideration, they would permit a connection to the foul network for the disposal of surface water at 1 litre per second. This allows the site to now mitigate all surface water that you saw in those photos running down the road in an uncontrolled manner, and it allows that to be mitigated from the site, thereby removing it as a potential source that could exacerbate historic flooding issues in Sibson. This is a significant benefit of the scheme. In summary, the statutory undertaker on the correct approach accepts the development can be delivered without harm, and this is also considered acceptable by the local authority drainage officer. There is no counter-evidence that demonstrates that this proposal increases the risk of surface water flooding or sewage capacity issues. Quite the opposite. It is a substantial improvement. Overall, the scheme causes no harm to any technical area, is wholly acceptable in design terms as confirmed in the committee report, and benefits from the tilted balance as applied by the National Planning Policy Framework, The refusal would therefore only be tenable where clear evidence of significant harm is demonstrated. There are no harms associated with the development, only benefits, which include the restoration of Horton House, sensitively designed high-quality new homes to meet an undersupply of housing delivery, ecological net gains, and the very significant reduction in uncontrolled overland surface water runoff, which it will be effectively controlled by condition. I'll end here, as we have our drainage consultant Anthony attending, and he will be very happy to answer any technical queries the committee may have. This is in the spirit of assisting the council in positive decision making. I'm also happy to answer any questions now or throughout the deliberation of the application, should that provide helpful clarifications, as I do want this application dealt with on correct information. Thank you. As I do want this application dealt with
Thank you.
Correct information. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Sorry,
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Smith? Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Smith? Councillor Collett has indicated he wishes to speak as ward councillor. Please go ahead. Councillor Collett has indicated
Thank you, Chair. I've spoken on this application in the past, so I don't intend to repeat the detail of my remarks then. I also know that the members of this committee went on the site visit, so they'll be well aware of the site. What I would say, if you look at the papers and if you look at the number of attendees tonight, is opposition to this application is unanimous within Sibson. I'm not only a ward councillor, I'm also a villager there, and the strength of feeling from the parish council is equal to that of villagers. Before I get into the facts of the matter, I would just comment on the late paper items, and it's just been confirmed by the applicant. The application was based on false information, albeit in good faith at the time. It has not been corrected or altered in any way, shape or form. The only argument of the applicant is that it was done in good faith at the time based on correspondence with Severn Trent. The credentials of Dr Rob Ward, the chairman of Sheepey Parish Council, are impeccable and unchallengeable in terms of his expertise on floods, and I hope that councillors will be aware of his credentials. If not, you can ask the two objectors when you do put questions to them. If not, you can ask. So, briefly, I'd just like to again reiterate the facts of this matter. This new proposal remains contrived over development. The agent has confirmed that a reduction in the amount of floor space proposed is only 9 square metres. So I'd say to this committee, you rejected it in the past. It's simply been reduced by the amount of 1.5 snooker tables. How can you retain credibility if you change decision on that basis? This overdevelopment will necessitate on-street parking. On-street parking in Sibson is on pavement parking because the street is a narrow country lane which is used by agricultural vehicles. There are 2 partially sighted residents who live nearby who will be severely affected by this. Sibson sewage system has a lack of capacity with no timescale or funding in place for necessary improvements. Sewage already has to be released regularly into the river by Severn Trent Water, and we saw an emergency incident only 2 weeks ago, which I went and questioned the workers about myself. Severn Trent Water have confirmed that if you refuse consent due to the management of surface water, they would support that decision, and I would urge the committee to do so. The houses immediately below the development site flood, as has been outlined to you. You've seen the pictures. People have had to move from their homes for months. There was an incident on Christmas Day not so long ago when this was the case. It is a site of constant worry, and if you've gone on a site visit to Sibson, you'll realise the slope involved between there and the cottages at Long Row. Finally, I'd say that the Parish Council comprehensively object by reference to the legally binding policies of the Sheepey Parish Neighbourhood Plan, which was made in May 2022. I would humbly and respectfully urge members of the committee to please respect the view of local residents through their parish council. Members of the committee to please respect the view of local residents through their parish council.
Thank you. We'll now debate the item including moving and seconding. We'll now debate the item including moving and seconding.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not particularly
Councillor Bray.
keen on this application. Although I'm sitting here struggling to wonder what reasons to object. I'd like to ask some questions to the officers, please, if they could provide some clarification. We heard a comment about the neighbourhood plan, reference to the neighbourhood plan. Could the officers just confirm what their thoughts are regarding how this complies with the neighbourhood plan or not? I've also heard this business about that this application has been put in with erroneous information. Again, I'd like some clarity on that. And then finally, we've had this before with Severn Trent. I remember another Ambient application, Stoke Golding, which I think Andy Furlong mentioned, where we sort of tried to bring Severn Trent in, and when the going got tough, the tough got going, if you like, in terms of the Severn Trent on this. I'm just concerned that if we seek to refuse this on drainage ground, we'll be left high and dry again, excuse the pun, or not, yeah. Because we've had it before with these statutory consultees where they talk tough at the start, and then when it comes to an appeal, they're nowhere to be seen. I'd like to comment on that, please, Chair. When it comes to an appeal, they're nowhere to be seen.
Thank you. Chris?
Thank you, Chair. So, policy 6 of the Sheepy Neighbourhood Plan, it's on page 14 of the main report under the Parish Council's comments. Policy S6. New development should take full account of flood risk, especially from rivers, groundwater and overland flow. The view of officers is that with the conditions, condition 10 and condition 18, which do require full details to be submitted before development commences, and we've said in the late items report that we will consult with the Environment Agency, with Highways, with the Parish Council, with the lead local flood authority, with Severn Trent Water, as well as with our own drainage consultant. Officers' view is that, with the conditions, this development is entirely consistent with policy S6. With regard to the erroneous information, so when the application was first submitted with a drainage statement, that was based on assumed information. That wasn't correct. Severn Trent didn't accept that assumed information, and Severn Trent have so not taken that information into account, and they have challenged the developers on what the developer wanted, and they have not agreed with what the developer wanted, which was a higher level of surface water runoff. So, Severn Trent are agreeing to this only on the basis that surface water runoff will be restricted to 1 litre per second, and that is a very low runoff rate. You can't get a lower runoff rate, and it's the runoff surface water runoff rate that is equivalent to a greenfield site.
Thank you. Councillor Furlong.
Thank you, Chair. Or shall I say Nostar back again?
Councillor Furlong.
It's also good to see Danny Councillor Finlay, back in the Vice Chair's seat. I'm really grateful to Mr Fuchs and Mr Ward for the submissions that they've sent to my email inbox in the last couple of days. I know that all councillors have received them, and I'm reasonably convinced that there is a significant drainage issue in this part of Sibston, and in the course of the presentations and also from Councillor Collett, serious questions have been raised regarding the robustness, if you like, of the sewage and drainage management in this part of Sibston. I think those concerns should be taken seriously. Now, I suspect we'll be advised that the statutory consultee, or the consultee Severn Trent Water, has assured everybody that there won't be a problem. It's interesting that this minimum figure is being deployed, and there is no lower threshold for surface water runoff. I don't know about such things, but I have had a look at Severn Trent's performance in and around the Simpson area in 2022. I mean, there were 816 sewage spill incidents in Hinckley and Bosworth, amounting to 2,700 hours of raw human waste being discharged into our water courses. And in Shenton, that's the nearest sewage overflow to Simpson, I believe. 15 times last year, 110 hours of sewage going into the River Anchor. Sheepy, 18 times, 182 hours of discharge into the River Sence. And if you go in the other direction, the Market Bosworth, 50 times, 653 hours of sewage discharge into Carlton Brook. Now, I think this is an unsustainable state of affairs. You will know this isn't a whip matter. I am a Labour councillor. There's an opposition day motion going to the Commons today on precisely this very issue. I don't suspect it will be passed, but it gives an indication of how serious issues like this are considered all over England. And therefore, I am minded to move that we reject the officer's report on the grounds of DN7, prevention of pollution and flooding. Paragraph A of that planning requirement says it will not adversely impact the water quality, ecological value or drainage function. Now, I think sufficient doubt has been cast in this conversation that that water quality, ecological value and drainage function will be compromised. And I think we have grounds, in light of the new information that has come up as this has been batted back and forth. I genuinely think there are concerns by converting what was a large property into a 3-4 small properties of hard standing. I think this has implications for the residents of Sibston in terms of water runoff, and I would like the committee to focus on that issue because I think their concerns are very real and very genuine. Now, I finish with this. I mean, this is my last planning committee. I'm gone after this. I have no skin in this game. I mean, this is my last really don't. But the last 4 years has been a real eye-opener because every time I consider an issue, it seems that everything is stacked against those good people you see in the gallery and in favour of the applicant and their silken-tongued agents, no disrespect, of the applicant. But that's the way this game works. We are playing a game, and it's a game in which the rules work against us. And it's a game in which all I can say then to finish is that I hope I can find a seconder to object on the grounds of DN7 and contravening policy S6 of the Sheepy Neighbourhood Plan. You good people up there have a chance to go out and vote next Thursday. Choose wisely, please. You won't be voting for me because I won't be here. But think about what happens that influences decisions like this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Findlay.
Thank you, Chair. I actually share a lot of sympathies that Andy has just expressed. Thank you, Chair. Stolen some of my thunder. I'm happy to share it with you, Andy. Again, to reiterate points that you've made, I have no skin in the game. I'm departing imminently. But actually, some of the evidence that I've seen on the screen this evening is most probably the most forthcoming I've seen on a planning committee in terms of evidence of flooding. There's clearly a water drainage issue. Looking at the photos that's been presented this evening. If I'm being completely frank, I don't feel like I've got all of the facts from the report. I think there's unanswered questions, and I think we do need to go back and we need to look at consultation, ask the questions to our statutory consultees before actually we can sit here and make an informed decision. So, similar vein to what Andy said, I'm not going to harp on above and beyond what's already been said. I was going to go down the route of a deferral for sort of updated and revised consultation, because quite frankly, as I say, I don't feel confident enough to make a decision on this evening. I don't like some of the condition wording either, just a point as well, especially in the late items. A lot of the condition refers to no part of the development hereby shall permitted shall be occurred until there such time as the drainage details have been provided. It insinuates that the development will be built prior to consultation, which is mind-boggling. It should be no development shall be started until such time that we've got the additional information. So I move to defer the application. I hope I have a supporter for that, and it would be useful to come back, reconvene, and put some useful information to hand. Thank you, Chair.
On the deferral, because we now have two sort of contrary positions, we've got rejection and deferral. I'm happy to drop back to deferral, but I don't have confidence in the quality of the information that's being provided by the statutory consultee to allow us to make a decision. That's what worries me. We can defer. We've deferred twice. We defer a third time. I think maybe there's a better solution, but if I can't find a seconder, so be it. But deferral, if I have to go for that, I'll go for it. So be it.
You do have a seconder.
Deferral, if I have
Councillor
to go
Roberts.
for that, I'll go for it.
Councillor Cartwright, you do have a seconder.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I understand the developer will obviously want to maximise any site. Of course they would. I would do the same in their position. But here we are again as a planning committee stuck with the first principle of any development is, does it include any harm on either the development itself or the surrounding area, and predominantly that's in terms of flooding and highway safety issues. And surprise, surprise, we're here again, knowing there are issues regarding the highway safety and no support for highways on those objections, leaving us with a precarious position where we do have a policy in our current policy which would allow members to use a highway objection but wouldn't have their supported appeal. Now we have Severn Trent who openly admit that the information was based on, I accept it was not malicious, incorrect and not complete information, and yet we're discussing it tonight. This has gone on for so long. How can we get from position A to position B without and still not have all the relevant facts before us in order to make a decision? So with Severn Trent being inconsistent, choosing my words carefully, in their approach and their agreement, we already know, because history tells us there's a flooding issue in the area, and we don't want to make that situation worse. There's a slight glimmer of help from the applicant here that the situation may improve. And that would be great if we could get to a sustainable development that the community was happy with, that the developer could build and make a profit on, and that would actually reduce a problem that was there in the first place. But that's not where we are. We're making a decision or attempting to make a decision based on highways failing to support us for what we know is an issue, and on Severn Trent not having the correct information before us, so therefore not giving us the position that a substantive position that we know whether they do or don't, and if it is their position in the end becomes this very low if it is their position in the end water drainage into the existing system, then it's only going to make the situation out on the roads and the pavement and verges and people's houses flooding much worse. So I'm torn here. I certainly don't want to approve it. I'm torn between refusing it outright, but I don't think that's fair to the applicant or the surrounding neighbours who actually I don't believe don't want any development at all. They just want development that's sensible, that works and does attempt to address certainly doesn't give them any larger problem and would be happy with a win if it reduced the issue that was already there. So I'm more for, it pains me, but I'm more for deferring this to give those agency who I'm losing confidence in daily coming to the table with meaningful debate that you can actually use that's reliable and tenable and deliverable. But I think there should be one last opportunity in this case for that. So I'm going to go with not the refusal, because I think that would be unfair to both sides, because the refusal won't go away, it will just go to appeal and probably be won at appeal, and then we'd lose all the right for conditions. So, very difficult position to be in, but I will happily second Councillor very difficult position to be in. Proposal to defer this so that Severn Trent Water I also note from the applicant that they've made very little change to the original design which was requested. So they are willing to have those negotiations and discussions, but I'm not seeing anything, as Councillor Collett says, that's really tangible in terms of progress there. But there is a final opportunity if we can get the Planning Committee to support that deferral for ongoing talks, and let's bring it back with everything bottomed out and make a decision on everything before us rather than all these ifs, buts and maybes and probabilities. Thank you, Chair. Everything before us rather than all these...
Councillor Roberts, would you like to confirm that you seconded that? Thank you.
I would like to do that, Chair.
Roberts, would you like to
May I carry on speaking? I would like to do that. Given the comments of my esteemed colleagues before me, I fully agree. Given the comments of my esteemed colleagues before me, on terms of flooding, it'll be interesting to see what happens if the SUE in Barwell ever goes ahead, because the River Tweed feeds all of that, the tributaries downstream from there, and over the last 8 years I've spent countless number of times complaining to Severn Trent about discharges into the River Tweed, which are on a regular basis. They're not one-offs, they're practically every time it rains. And we're talking a big settlement, Barwell, and everything goes downstream from Barwell to Sibson and beyond. So everything goes downstream from Barwell. I can't see how any mitigation that's put on this site is going to help Sibson, because all you're doing is adding to the surface water, and worse still, you're adding to the sewage, which then discharges into the river. So actually, you're not improving, you're actually making things worse. So I disagree with that. I still think the site is overdeveloped. There isn't enough parking. The road at Sibson is very narrow. It is a very busy road. I use that road regular, and also it floods. So it's sort of exacerbated in several avenues there. So I think at the moment we've still got an overdeveloped site, and there isn't enough parking on site. At the moment we've still got an overdeveloped site, and there isn't enough parking on site. Thanks.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Morell.
And can I just say that I am the neighbouring ward member. Can I just say that my colleague, Councillor Collett, and I work very closely together. He also, because Sibson falls into the Sheep Parish Council, he also attends the Sheep Parish Council along with me. This, as many of the members know, has been going on and on and on. And I'm bitterly disappointed, to be quite honest, that when this committee sent it away last time to reduce the number of dwellings, that they actually put a number on it. I can only obviously take the minutes of the meeting that they're correct, because I think when the site was first being discussed, nobody had any objection to the site being developed. But being in such a picturesque village, and the situation with the conservation area, and Sibson, anyone who knows Sibson knows that we have had some horrendous development in Sibson. Wembrook, I can't remember whether it's a coppice or place, but there are some very large houses next to the Cock Inn, which were held up as a shining example of poor planning and development, and trainees were brought out there to show them just what we can do to ruin a village in ruin, which is so picturesque. I don't want this to happen again. And I feel that whilst the number of houses has been reduced, we are still left with almost exactly the same footprint. which I don't think this committee was, that was their intention. I believe that the intention of this committee was to actually reduce the size of the development. And it's just a shame, like I say, that we put a number on dwellings. I personally would have much preferred 2 dwellings. We could have had a really, really good development. All the car parking issues could have been taken care of. There would have been probably more open space, more areas of land that would absorb the flooding issues, which are well documented, and Councillor Furlong here has done an absolute excellent job in highlighting all those issues. So I personally think that a deferral for this is certainly needed, but I would certainly also support a refusal, because I think this is so in the air and so wrong that I think that this is what the committee should actually do. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bray.
Well, I first want to make a point on the sewage discharge.
Thank you.
Councillor Bray. And the reason why I first want to make a point is because the government allows discharge. Frankly, it's disgusting that Bosworth's MP and all the other MPs who voted to allow the government to allow them to continue to do this. Frankly, it needs to stop. But that aside, I'm slightly confused because I listened to what Andy Furlong said. I'm slightly confused because I listened to what he said. Andy Furlong. But gaming that out, I can see, game playing that in the future, I can see where we'll end up. Gaming that out, statutory consultees, game playing that, the application will go through on appeal, where we know that. And then we heard various comments from Councillor Roberts and Councillor Morell about overdevelopment and site, which again, I've got some sympathy with, but that's not what the motion that Councillor Furlong moved. So we're either discussing, if we want to widen it to talk about overdevelopment of the site, we're either discussing, but that's not the motion that you moved, is it? You moved the motion on
No, I've moved DM7. It's a drainage and flooding issue, and I see it exclusively as a draining and flooding issue.
So this is, we've heard different arguments. Let's be clear on what, if we are going to refuse this, what we're going to refuse it on, because we've heard two different things. Refuse this, what we're going to refuse it on, because.
Thank you. Does the planning officer want to say anything? Tim, thank you.
Yes, please.
Does the planning officer want to say anything? Tim?
Just working in reverse order. Councillor Morell's point about the footprint. The footprint of development on the site under the implemented permission from 2014 for extensions to Houghton House, along with the retention of the outbuildings that are currently on the site, that footprint is actually bigger than what is now proposed. Councillor Roberts' point about not enough parking. Parking is set out by the local highway authority. That requires that houses that have 2 or 3 bedrooms have at least 2 parking spaces. That is what is provided. The reference to Severn Trent, they are not a statutory consultee. They are a statutory consultee on major schemes of 10 dwellings. They are not a statutory consultee for minor schemes like this. We have been passed correspondence by both the applicant and the objectors with regard to what Severn Trent have said, and what my professional opinion of that is that they are not being inconsistent. They have been presented with an assumption. They have not accepted that assumption. They have not agreed with what the developer has wanted to do with regard to the amount of surface water drainage, and they have limited what can happen to a very low runoff rate of 1 litre per second. I fail to see how further consultations with every statutory consultee that there is on this scheme, plus any other consultee that the committee might want us to liaise with, as we have said we would do on the conditions, I do not see that that is going to produce any different consultee responses with regard to the application. They have set out their positions. I have had numerous conversations with your own drainage officer. Every time I have spoken to him, every time I have questioned him on the back of the objector's comments, he has said the same thing to me, that he has no objections subject to the condition, and the condition, no objections subject condition 10, and the condition which says no development shall commence. Not that houses are not occupied, but no development shall commence. Not that houses are not occupied. Drainage details have been submitted to and agreed. As officers, we are saying that we will consult Severn Trent. We will consult Highways. We will consult the lead local authority. We will consult the Environment Agency on those drainage details. And if they are not happy with those drainage details, houses will not be built. And if they are not happy with those drainage details, houses will not be built. I won't repeat what I've said about condition, about policy S6 of the neighbourhood plan. Condition about policy worth doing it. But I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chairman. Although it's worth doing it.
Thank you.
But I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Findlay.
Thank you, Chair. Based on your responses, Tim, which some of which I disagree with, we'll take that elsewhere. Some of which I disagree with. I'm going to withdraw my motion to defer, and I'm going to put my weight behind Councillor Furlong to refuse it, because quite frankly, I just don't see how, if we're not going to go out and reconsult, there be a different avenue for this. So, Councillor Furlong, you have my full support. A different avenue for this. So, Councillor Furlong, you have my full support.
Councillor Cartwright.
As members, our first and foremost duty is to the residents that are already there, rather than residents to join the community. And I take no comfort whatsoever from what's just been said about achieving any desirable change to the position. It seems to me that were we to give permission for this evening, then all we will do is end up with a worse situation that we were party to. Then all we will do is along with my colleague there, I withdraw my seconded of that motion and to support the motion for refusal. My seconded of that motion and to support the motion for refusal.
Thank you. Councillor Furlong.
Just to clarify, Chair, my moving of refusing the officer's report is solely based on drainage issues. The issues of overdevelopment are moot. I mean, I'm not going to get involved in that, but this is a drainage issue, so it's just DM7 and Section S6 of the Sheepy Neighbourhood Plan. It's just DM7. This community is flooding already. Section S6 of the Sheepy Neighbourhood Plan. Why make it worse? This community is flooding already. Why make it worse?
We have a motion to refuse permission, moved by Councillor Furlong. We have a motion to refuse by Councillor Roberts, moved by Councillor. Could you please outline your reasons for refusal?
DM7,
Could you please outline your
drainage and sewage issues, and section DM7 S6, or in contravention of the spirit, at least, of section S6 of the Sheepy Neighbourhood Plan.
Thank you.
The spirit, at least, of section S6 of the Sheepy
Would the lead officer like to make any comments? Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm the seconder agrees with that reason for refusal? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Can I just confirm the seconder agrees with that reason for refusal? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Right, would you like to take a vote on this then, please? All those in favour of the motion to refuse, please. All those in favour of the motion to refuse. Thank you. Anyone against? Thank you. Anyone against? The motion is carried. The motion is carried. Would you like to make any comments? Okay. Would you like to make any comments? Okay. Right. Yes. The motion is carried and permission is therefore refused for the reasons given. The motion is carried and permission is therefore refused for the reasons given. Item 8, page 31. Item 8, page 31. Just wait for people to leave. Just wait for people to leave. If you are leaving by the stairs, could you use this door here, please? If you are leaving by the stairs, could you use this door here, please? If you are not using the lift. If you are not using the lift. Thank you. Item 8, page 31, application 23/00150/conditional, 12 Sketchley Lane, Ratcliffe Cooley. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please? Ratcliffe Cooley. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report?
Next application is 12 Sketchley Lane, Ratcliffe Cooley, near Atherstone. The proposal is a variation of Condition 2 and Condition 7 of previous planning permission 22-00639 FUL. And the proposal is for an amendment to erect a single-storey rear extension to plots 1 and 2, remove and replace the detached garage for plot 1 with hard standing. So just by way of background, before I move on to the slides, so this application came to committee in September last year, so September 2022, with a decision notice issued in October 22. The application was approved subject to conditions, and the previous proposal, which was approved, was for the demolition of a single dwelling on the site, which I'll come on to the slides, and erection of 2 dwellings. Since that time, of the conditions that were imposed, the construction management plan has been discharged, and there's an application pending for remaining conditions as well to be discharged, with this application now seeking to vary the permitted plans as well to be discharged. So moving through the slides, so the first one shows the site to the north side of Ratcliffe Cooley. The site was subject to a committee site visit as well back in September. The Sketchley Lane itself serves 3 dwellings on the western side and a further 3 dwellings on the eastern side, including the post office. And the host dwelling shown there within the red line plan is to be demolished. So that's the red line site location plan within the red line plan is to be demolished. And then this is now the proposed site plan, and I will jump backwards and forwards between the current and the previous site plans. So this new site plan now removes the garage to plot 1, which was located on the left-hand side of the picture, and seeks to add a single-storey rear extension to the 2 plots. And it's important to note that permitted development rights were not removed from the previous scheme. If I jump back, so that was what was approved in September, and you can see the garage there on the left-hand side, which is now to be removed. If I jump back, and the depth of the plots have increased slightly, so as I move on then to the elevations, it's the single-storey rear extension element you can see here on the right-hand side here that's been added. So effectively it's an increase in ground floor space only compared to what's already approved. So effectively it's an increase in ground. Sorry, previously it was plot 1, plot 2. That's it. Given the previous extant permission in place and the minor alterations proposed, the application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you. And the minor alterations proposed, the application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you.
We have an objector and the agent to speak on this item. Miss Wilkins, as objector, you will speak first. Please start when you are ready. Miss Wilkins, as objector, you will speak
Firstly,
first.
I'd like to
Please
thank the
start
Chairman
when you
for
are
the
ready.
opportunity to address the committee and to tell you that once again I am representing all the residents of Sketchley Lane and a significant number of other Ratcliffe Cooley residents. I begin with a question. Why do people choose to live in a small hamlet such as Ratcliffe Cooley? The answer as I see it is to be in the countryside, to look at the views and to see and encourage wildlife. Why else would you choose to live there? If you don't want those things, you choose to live in an urban area. A developer coming from a city or town can have no idea what it is to live in our beautiful village. This particular developer has, with your permission, turned a wildlife haven with mature hedges and trees, teeming with birds and insects, creating a foraging ground for bats and small mammals, into a lifeless, barren desert, and will cut out any views of the countryside by the erection of a 6-foot fence. It's madness. The gardens will be small, as they are, but with careful planting, wildlife could be encouraged to return. Now, however, he wants to reduce these small gardens even further by extending the ground floor, impacting further on the wildlife. We all thought impacting wildlife was a very significant consideration by councils, and we trust it will be the case here. Also, by reducing the gardens for these enormous houses at which children will most likely live, where will these children play? We have no doubt that if you allow this amendment, that the next thing will be a 2-storey amendment, adding additional bedrooms to these already monstrously large properties. They will already be 2 of the largest houses in the hamlet and completely unsuitable for a place of this size and location. There remains the problem, which I pointed out at the time, of the original plans being incorrectly drawn, a point which the Planning Committee completely ignored. They show a turning circle over private land owned by Miss Amanda Boyd of number 16. So at present, any lorry making deliveries of building materials will block access to 4 houses, 2 of which have vulnerable people living there, one wheelchair-bound and the other in her 90s, preventing emergency vehicles accessing them and endangering the safety of pedestrians as well as drivers as these lorries back out onto the main road, and also causing a loss of earnings for the post office if it cannot be accessed. Councillor Cartwright said a few moments ago, any development should not impact detrimentally on other residents. We request that you make an amendment to the plans which must include this alleged turning circle on the land at number 12, not over somebody else's private property. I admit I know nothing of planning law, and I know that the developer here will cite section this and subsection that, explaining why you should pass this amendment. I am asking you to consider the safety and peace of mind of the people who live there and the negative environmental impact of this amendment. When objecting to the original plans, I asked you to refuse the application. This time, on behalf of the residents and the parish council, who have refused permission as they did for the original application, I am asking you to refuse this amendment and to insist on a turning circle being included for the safety of the general public and residents. Thank you. Thank you.
Miss Stevens, please start when you are ready. Thank you.
Thank you,
Ms.
Chair.
Stevens, please
I'd
start
like to
when
start
you're
by
ready.
thanking the committee for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the applicant in support of the application. The application at 12 Sketchley Lane seeks to vary 2 conditions imposed on an extant permission for residential development granted by the Planning Committee on the 27th September 2022. The 2 conditions proposed to be varied relate to the approved plans and parking arrangements. The proposed variations have the full support of the case officer and have received no objections from statutory consultees. The principle of two dwellings on the application site is already established by the extant permission. Therefore, the only material considerations to be considered tonight relate to the changes proposed to conditions 2 and 7. The first proposed change relates to the addition of a single-storey extension to the rear of both plots, which would be approximately 2.2 metres in depth. They would be located to the rear, and therefore any view of the extensions would be extremely limited from public vantage points. The extensions would not alter the appearance of the dwellings already approved in the street scene. The overall footprint of each extension would be approximately 21 square metres. The footprint of the already approved dwellings is approximately 79 square metres. It is not considered that the additional footprint would be a significant increase upon that already approved. The second proposed change relates to the removal of the detached single garage previously approved to serve plot 1, and instead increasing the amount of hard standing to the front of the plot to ensure off-street parking facilities would still be in accordance with Leicestershire County Council Highway Design Guidance. The conclusion reached for the previous application that development would not result in an adverse impact on highway safety, therefore still applies. It is understood that resident concern has been raised in respect of the loss of hedgerows, overdevelopment and residential amenity. The removal of hedgerows around the boundaries of the application site was stipulated on the site plan that was approved in the extant permission, as well as replacement planting and close-boarded fencing. The current application does not seek to alter this element of the proposal, and the ownership of hedgerows surrounding the application site is not a planning matter. The proposed extensions would result in a small increase to the already approved footprint and would not be seen from the street scene, and would still provide gardens which would meet the Council's adopted design guidance. The approved separation distance from number 14 Sketchley Lane would be maintained to ensure extensions would not impact neighbouring amenity. I also think it's worthwhile noting the planning officer's point about permitted development rights not being removed on the extant permission. To conclude, the amendments proposed to conditions 2 and 7 of the extant planning permission on site would not change the previous conclusions drawn by the Council. The development would still be in accordance with policy DM10, DM17 and DM18 of the adopted local plan, and would still meet the Council's design guidance and Leicestershire County Council's highway standards. I therefore respectfully request councillors move to approve the development in line with officer recommendation.
Thank you. We will now debate the item including moving and seconding. Thank you. We will now debate the item including moving and seconding.
I sympathise with the comments that have been made by the objector. Thank you, Chair. But based on the planning consent that was given back in 2022, as I understand it, and I'm sure Chris or Tim will correct me if I'm wrong, that the principle of development has already been established. So what we're looking at here is in essence the extension part. So it is my understanding, and again, I'm happy to be corrected if I'm wrong, that the development can be built out in its full entirety tomorrow, and the extension could be done under permitted development. So on that basis, I will move the report. The extension could be done under permitted development.
Thank you.
So
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you. That's not my understanding, Chair, which is what the question I'm going to pose of officers. That's not my understanding, it's the technical question of, I understand the extent planning permissions in place, but it contradicts itself because the agents just said there that the permitted development rights are removed once the permission was. If they haven't been removed, then the extension could be built once then the planning permission was built and in force anyway, without even coming to committee. That's the technicality. Built and in force anyway. Right. Without even coming to committee. That's the technicality.
Councillor Lynch.
Yeah, Chairman, Martin has made exactly the point I was going to make.
Councillor Lynch.
The fact of the matter is that even if we refused this, they could go ahead and build it on the matter is that so it's pointless refused this, they could go ahead. I second the Vice Chairman's proposal. Pointless. I second the Vice Chairman's proposal.
Councillor Cook.
Oh, thank you, Chair. We often hear the words here, be careful what you wish for. Thank you, Chair. And as I understand it, if this was refused, new people could move into the houses, and 12 months down the line, they could apply to put an extension on the back, which means then you'd get builders' vans and all the rest of the paraphernalia blocking the lane again. So I think it's been well conditioned, and I'm happy to support the officer's report to get this over and done. Been well conditioned, and I'm happy to support the officer's report.
Councillor Morell.
Yeah, as a ward councillor, I am disappointed, obviously, that the developer has seen to bring, and I can understand the situation that we're in with permitted development rights and stuff like that, but I stuck my neck out by supporting this, and you know, it seems a big slap in the face to this community to yet again see a developer that's extending the development beyond what we wanted. I appreciate that they've got permitted development rights and everything else, and I think it's probably one that it's to, as Maureen says, be careful what you wish for, but under the circumstances I don't think there's anything we can do, which is very disappointing. Under the circumstances I don't think there's anything we can do.
Thank you. Councillor Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Again, the same as Councillor Morell. Unfortunately, there's permitted development rights. However, I will say that I didn't like the plan in the first place. I think it's in the wrong place, wrong time, and I won't support this application. It's in the wrong place, wrong time.
Thank you.
And I won't support this application.
Thank you. Right. We'll move to the vote. Those in favour of the motion, please raise their hands. We'll move to the vote. Those in favour of the motion, please raise their hands. 2. 2. The motion is carried. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9, page 43, application 22/01056/FUL, 7 Dean Road, Hinckley. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please? 7 Dean Road, Hinckley. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please?
This application relates to land to the rear of 7 Dean Road. The first slide shows the site in relation to its surroundings, and the second shows the red line site area in relation to the blue edge land that is also in the ownership of the applicant. The third slide shows the site layout. The application seeks permission for a 2-storey dormer bungalow that provides the upper floor within the roof space. Permission is also sought for a double garage, which also provides an upper floor of accommodation within the roof space. Some of the committee members visited the site this morning. Objections have been received from 6 neighbouring properties. The scheme has been revised in order to address neighbour concerns regarding overlooking from dormer windows originally proposed in the garage roof. So the plans of the elevations of the dormer bungalow, the plans, and then the plans and elevations of the garage. And it is the windows there that were originally dormer windows that have been changed to skylights. In addition, The ridge height of the dwelling has been reduced as a result of officer concerns regarding the size of the proposed dwelling. As set out at paragraph 811, the ridge height has been reduced by 80 centimetres since the application was first submitted. The applicant sought pre-application advice from officers prior to the submission of the planning application, and that advice stated that the proposed dwelling should be respectful of the existing roof height and roof form of existing dwellings on Dean Road, which does have a variety of dwellings, but is predominantly characterised by bungalows and chalet bungalows with accommodation in the roof space. The application is recommended for approval. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Is recommended for approval.
We have the agent to speak. Mr. Bottrell, will you please start when you are ready? We have the agent to speak.
Chair.
Mr. Bottrell.
My name is James Bottrell.
I'm
a director at HSSP Architects.
Thank you, Chair.
We're the agents for this application on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Taylor. The proposal to erect one new dwelling to the rear of number 7 Dean Road, Hinckley, was initially discussed with Hinckley Planning Department in February last year through a pre-application. The applicant was keen to engage with the local planning authority as early as possible so a suitable design solution could be reached before any formal planning application was made. The formal response to our pre-application was received in July last year, which was very supportive of the proposal in principle and gave Mr and Mrs Taylor the confidence to progress into detailed design and to prepare the planning application which is in front of you this evening. As with any backland development, the impact to neighbouring properties and their amenity is one of the most important design considerations. The Council's Good Design Guide, Supplementary Planning Guidance, sets out the process to ensure good quality design relating to backland development and was a good point of reference when we were designing the proposal in detail. Good design standards set out in DM10 have also been considered in order to evaluate the character of the surrounding area with regards to scale, layout and appearance. Proposed new dwelling has been orientated and positioned within the site to meet the local planning authority's requirements on separation distances from neighbouring properties, and the internal arrangements have been carefully considered so no new windows would cause any loss of privacy to adjacent gardens. The design of the proposed dwelling takes its architectural language from the character of the surrounding houses along Dean Road, the majority of which are 1.5 storeys in height, with first floor accommodation set within the roof. Care has been taken to establish a roof height which does not exceed any of the neighbouring properties, together with a hipped roof line which echoes the silhouette of nearby properties. Landscaping has also been another key consideration of the proposal, and the applicant was keen to retain existing hedgerow boundaries to the site to retain the mature character, as well as reducing the impact of the proposal on Dean Road street scene. An arboricultural report was commissioned early in the design process so we could establish which trees were of high quality and which trees could be retained. The applicant was keen to retain a large cypress tree in the middle of the garden, which was the tallest of all the trees and has the greatest impact on the character of the site. Through good design, this tree has been retained and plays an important role in creating separation between the 7 Dean Road. Amendments to the proposed access have been made during the planning process following comments from the local highways authority. These have now been addressed with a modification to the access width, all of which have been met by the approval of the Leicestershire County Council highways team, who are supportive of the proposal subject to planning conditions. Overall, the proposal has been carefully considered, has taken on board the local planning authority's supplementary guidance on good design, as well as engaging with the local planning authority at an early stage through the pre-planning process. Your planning officers have considered this application against your local planning policies, as well as the NPPF, and have concluded that the proposal is acceptable and should therefore receive your support this evening. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We will now debate the item including moving and seconding. Thank you. Councillor Bray. We will now debate the item including moving and seconding. Councillor Bray.
I have to say I'm very unhappy with this. I don't think it is in character with the surrounding area. I also have concerns about the the residential amenity, particularly on the host dwelling and the immediate neighbours to the side, with the narrow access that will be there. And on those two grounds, I want to move refusal, please. Narrow access that will be there. And on those two grounds,
Councillor Gibbons.
Yes, echoing Councillor Bray's concerns, I'm going to second that refusal. Yes, echoing
Thank you.
Councillor Bray's concerns,
Councillor Roberts.
that refusal.
Thank you, Chair. Here we are again.
Councillor Roberts.
Another garden rob. I really wish the government would change the legislation and stop this. My own ward has suffered enormous amounts of garden robbing. As far as I can see, this is down to the sheer greed of the owner of the original property, who thought he could make a fast buck on the land he owns, and equally by the developer who thinks I can make a fast buck by building a house. I've never supported these, and out of principle, I will not support this application either. I've never supported these, and out of principle, I will not support
Councillor
this
Lynch.
application either.
Yes, Chairman.
Councillor Lynch.
Building on backland just happens to be one of those things that we're now having to accept. There are limits to what we need to consider. The access, quite frankly, is highly questionable. The building is far too big for that site. Excuse me, beg your pardon. And Councillor Bray has moved refusal, and I would second that on the grounds of DM10 development and design.
Thank you. Councillor Cartwright.
Development.
Thank you, Chair. I was only going to second the motion.
Councillor Cartwright.
Thank you, Chair. I was only going to second the motion. Thank you.
Could you, Councillor Bray, could you please outline your reasons for refusal?
Yeah.
Councillor Bray, could you please outline your reasons for refusal?
Site impact on the host and other neighbouring dwellings, the vehicle routes, site impact on the host.
Do you accept that?
Yep, accept that.
Thank you. Do you accept that?
Yep.
We have a motion to refuse permission moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by Councillor Gibbons. Motion to refuse permission moved by Councillor Bray, seconded by Councillor Gibbons. Like to make any comments? Like to make any comments? Would you like to make any comments?
Obviously, just to say, members, that you've got a recommendation before you, haven't you, which is for one of approval, and just to make sure, I mean, obviously you've outlined the planning reasons why you're doing that. Approval, as long as that's robust and defensible, reasons why you're doing that. I just have just one thing that I do think was important to bring, which was with Councillor Roberts. With all due respect, you said that you would never approve of backland development, and I just wanted to make sure that it was just having an open mind on that rather than coming with a closed mind, because you've said that you wouldn't refuse it on that basis.
Correct.
Yeah, a closed mind, because you've said that you wouldn't refuse it
Thank
on
you.
that basis.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have a motion to refuse. Could we take a vote, please? All those in favour? To refuse. Could we take a vote, please? All those in favour? No. No. Item 10. Item 10. Application 23, treble 07. Application 0077, sorry. FUL 11 Wallace Drive, Groby. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please? Wallace Drive, Groby. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please?
This next item is 11 Wallace Drive in Groby, and the proposal is proposed conversion of garage to office, 11 Wallace Drive with ensuite, and then in brackets there retrospective, as the works are partly retrospective ensuite. The site itself, so we're outside of the core village of Groby, we're to the north of the A50, so the A50 is marked there on the bottom left-hand side of the slide. Wallace Drive forms a loop with Lena Drive off the A50 to the north and Wallace Drive. And again, over the next slide, so that's shown again on the site location plan. and then a more zoomed-in version there of the site plan as well. This next slide shows the existing parking provisions. This is excluding the existing garage on site, which is a double garage, which will come onto in the plans, and shows that the site can still accommodate 5 to 6 parked cars. And shows that the site that's the existing and proposed elevation. So existing on the left-hand side and proposed elevation existing the garage. So there's no other external alterations proposed other than what's shown there, and no extensions to the existing building proposed other than what's shown there. The existing ground floor plan. Existing ground and first floor plan. And then proposed ground floor plan. As mentioned, the works proposed are internal works only. So the only external works proposed are to the external elevation of the garage as shown in the previous slide. Para 3.3 in the report sets out the staff requirements for the site as a children's home, with 2 staff working shifts and present at all times on site. The site is residential in location and appearance, and has a lawful use as a care home for children, or a children's home rather, following a certificate of lawful existing use, demonstrated as a continuous 10-year use of the site, which was approved last year. This proposal now in front of you, with the proposed ground floor plan now on the screen, proposes 1 additional replacement bedroom, with no external extensions proposed, together with no statutory consultee objections, and no amenity impacts considered to neighbouring residents. The application is therefore recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. We have an objector and 3 representatives of the applicant to speak on this application. Mr. Smith, as objector, you will speak first. Please start when you are ready. Mr. Smith, as objector, you will speak first.
Good evening. I'm Peter Smith, representing Wallace Drive and Lena Drive neighbours who wish to register their strong objections to this retrospective planning application. This children's home is a commercial business located in a quiet residential area with narrow roads, mainly surrounded by retired residents in bungalows, both in Wallace Drive and at the bottom of the rear garden in Lena Drive. The original homeowner, Educare, promised neighbours in 2003 that it was catering for just 2 children residents and 2 staff on site at all times. The business was taken over by Horizon Care in 2012, and their website states it is now for 3 children residents. However, in this application, their Dobson Gray planning statement states they intend to increase it to 4 children residents with extra staff. This is double the original agreed 2003 Educare figure of 2 children. Local residents are objecting to this retrospective planning application because they believe that the long-term ambition and ongoing commercial plan of Horizon Care is to increase their turnover and expand their business here, both with children resident numbers and also additional commercial activities on this site, using it as a venue for training courses and meetings. Hence, this application is to increase the useful internal site available to maximise its commercial use. This suspicion arises because last year Horizon Care was granted a certificate of lawful use under the 10-year rule to change the class of use from C3 to C2. And this Class C2 allows unrestricted residents and extra uses, including a hospital, nursing home, a residential school, college or training centre. Consequently, any of these permitted uses would mean a sharp increase in the number of personnel and vehicles using the site either now or in the future, especially if there is any change of ownership. This retrospective garage conversion application is fait accompli, as the conversion building work has already been completed. Therefore, the extra facilities have already been provided and will be ready immediately for use on any planned increase in activities on this site. Any increasing numbers on site will exacerbate the 2 existing problems following. Firstly, children residents and antisocial behaviour. The children residents are said to be living here because they have social, emotional and or behavioural difficulties. Over the years since it opened in 2003, different children residents here have been the source of many antisocial behaviour incidents. These range from the serious, arson in the early days and later accusations of theft, to causing noisy disturbances, usually outdoors, such as loud shouting, screaming, and obscene swearing in the gardens, often late at night. Then there are regular occurrences of vandalism, including damaged fences, gardens, windows and guttering. Trespass, also rubbish, stones, etc. being thrown over the various fences, including a stone thrown intentionally at a neighbour's dog. Just this week, one neighbour has submitted his bill to the home for a broken window caused by a child resident throwing stones. The children occasionally play outside and on the road on bikes and scooters, with a notable lack of proper supervision by the care staff. This is a road with a blind bend, so there's a potential accident waiting to happen, as it can be very busy at times. In reality, there are doubts that any complaints which do get reported to the home do not get logged anywhere for future reference and inspection by the monitoring authorities. All this is not acceptable. Secondly, any expansion allowing extra personnel on visiting this site will obviously mean extra vehicles and traffic. Apart from the regular on-site 24/7 staff and managers' vehicles, other visitors in cars attending will no doubt include social workers, relatives, friends, tradesmen, other Horizon Care staff, including those attending meetings or training sessions, and occasionally the police. Parking issues, there has been a loss of 2 garage spaces with this application. Currently, it has been observed that on many occasions the 6 parking spaces mentioned in the application are often not sufficient to cater for the number of vehicles. Any overspill vehicles are having to park along the length of Wallace Drive, often half on the pavement because of the narrow road width. This has led to problems with vans and larger vehicles attempting to negotiate the narrower width. Also, complaints by pedestrians, including wheelchair users. To summarise, local residents believe that this retrospective application should be refused because increasing the usable size available will create an unacceptable increase in persons on site, causing further parking and more ASB antisocial behaviour issues in the neighbourhood. However, if planning permission is granted this evening, could the following conditions be considered and added, please? Limiting the number of young residents, limiting the maximum age of the young residents, limiting the total number of people on site. Thank you.
Thank you.
The total number of people on site. Thank you.
Thank you. Could the applicant share the allotted time as you see fit? Please start when you are ready. Could the applicant share the allotted time as you see fit?
Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk. I just want to start off by apologising for the retrospective. It was a genuine error that was thought internally to have permitted development, and as soon as we realised and obviously a planning application was made, there was no intention to evade planning controls. It's been a children's home, this property, for approximately 20 years. And the property at the moment has C2 use as stated, which does not have restrictions on the amount of children we put on there. However, what I would like to say is that obviously we're regulated very closely by Ofsted. So the type of property and how many children in there is done in conjunction with the local authority, with social workers and with Ofsted. So there is an additional plan to put a 4th young person in this property, but that will be done whether this garage that works was done anyway, because it is a 4-bedroom home. And there are, within children's homes, areas where staff sleep and offices are made. I would like to say that with regards to parking, there is ample parking on the property for we think 6 to 8 vehicles. To my knowledge, we never park on the road. There's no reason to do so because of the size of the front area, which isn't used as a garden. Only the rear is used as a garden. The home is not used as a training or meeting area. Ofsted wouldn't allow us to do that. This is a children's home meeting area, and this is a home that is pretty much set up like my home with my children. And this is a home, and pretty much we don't have. It's not a training centre. Meetings don't take place there. If there are visitors from people meeting from social workers with a manager or with staff there, then that's the only meetings that will take place. So I do want to refute and say that there's no training or meetings taking place here. The garage has never been used as parking because we have ample parking on there, and this application is to enhance the living environment for the staff and obviously most importantly the children, because this area in question is actually for staff to sleep in as well as the office. It's not for an additional child. That will go in the original footprint of the home as it is. It's not for an additional child. Obviously, planning policy, remain supported of the community-based care model. To have children who, I must admit, I don't want to speak out of term in my position within the organisation. Some children who have been through some very horrible things. I don't want to speak out of term in my position not their fault. And it's not due to any medical conditions, etc. like that. This is due to the situations that are medical conditions for the children who reside in this home. But they should be, and they are allowed in the planning policy to support to live in this accommodation, this domestic style of accommodation within the local community to participate in society, which might include riding their bike outside, which might include riding their bike outside or their scooter. My child would outside my home. And obviously through local attendance at schools and involvement with the local sporting and other leisure activities. So this all helps to ensure that the children residing at the property, experience that domestic environment that is not significantly different to their peers. And that's what we're doing at this home, which is rated as good by Ofsted. And it is regrettable that I'm hearing them with the staff. There are other neighbours there. So I hope that gives a clear explanation of what's happened and why we find ourselves here. And I'm hoping with what we said about the C2 and with the explanation that we can hopefully have no objections or the planning can go through for this. Is there anything you wanted to say? No objections or the planning. Sorry, I've probably waffled on and taken a lot of time. Sorry. Is there anything you wanted to say?
Sorry, I'd just like to say, as a manager of the home, I've only been there for about 3 years now, but I have worked with Educare in its days for the last 20 years. I am approachable. My door is always open. If somebody has knocked the door and said there's been an issue, then I've dealt with it. The stones have been removed from the back of the house that I do know at one point, several 18 months ago that was being used, so they was removed. A fence has been damaged, I've replaced it. The neighbour were talking about who did present a bill. I have been and seen that, but that bill was from 6-7 months ago and he's only just produced it. But I've still been round and still spoke to him. If anybody wants to come and see the house, visit the children, then by all means please do so. To come and see the house, visit the children, then by all means please do so.
Yes. Councillor Cartwright. Yeah. Councillor Cartwright. Sorry, jumping the gun. We have the Parish Council representative, Councillor Lincoln. Start when you're ready, please. We have the Parish Council representative.
Good evening. My name's Carol Lincoln, and I'm here tonight representing Groovy Parish Council. Good evening. My name's Carol Lincoln, and I'm here tonight. Our council are concerned by the attitude of Horizon Health to planning laws. Every planning application that we've seen from this property has been retrospective. They never seem to have played by the rules to apply for work to be done before they've started it, and have even applied retrospectively for a change of status from C3 to C2. This application has similarly taken place without permission. We have the following concerns: that, despite assurances from the home that they would not be housing any more young people last year, they are now planning to do so, adding another bedroom to the home. But the plans show that the former garage will now house an office as well as a bedroom. And this suggests that a member of staff will be sleeping in that bedroom, away from the main house area. So there will be even less supervision, which is also currently inadequate. The list of antisocial behaviour from residents is long. The next-door neighbour has suffered a large number of antisocial behaviour events, including his windows being broken, fence broken, with frequent screaming and swearing in the back garden, and trespass into his garden. When he went to report the last incident, he was told that it wouldn't be recorded, as the manager was away on holiday for the next 2 weeks. He has never noted any of the incidents being written up. Ofsted had no knowledge of any issues, and so it is evident that these events are not being logged properly by the home. In conclusion, we strongly object to the granting of retrospective permission for this garage conversion, as we believe it will have a serious adverse impact on the well-being of the neighbours, with even more vandalism, antisocial behaviour and noise, reducing the neighbours' ability to feel safe in their own homes. And policy DM10 has an impact on residential amenity which must be considered in any planning. Has an impact on residential amenity which must be considered in any planning. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. We'll now debate the item, including moving and seconding it. Councillor Cartwright. We'll now debate the item, including moving and seconding it.
Well, I welcome the apology from the applicant here. But it does surprise me because a business of this organisation's properties, you'd think, would know that planning permission was needed for this type of conversion. Ignorance is in the defence, of course, members, I remind you, in planning terms. And it's quite serious when you're looking to seek retrospective planning permission. It then moves on to, once the applicant was advised that they needed planning permission, I accept their apology and I accept there probably was a genuine mistake there, but they could have chosen at that point to halt the development, hence the committee outcome, and yet the development continued and for all intents and purposes is ready to be delivered tomorrow should the planning application receive support tonight. So the apology is half accepted, if you see what I mean. In terms of the application itself, well, it talks about discrepancies in the drawings, and I didn't declare an interest, but I will declare that it was me, as a ward member, that noted the development, realised it needed planning permission, and just asked for our enforcement officer to visit the site to see if I was right or wrong. And we're here tonight because that was correct, and so I'm not hiding behind that fact. But from the discussions that came back to me as ward member at the time, the plans have changed in terms of what was talked about on that initial site visit by the enforcement officers, which we're not going to tonight because my recommendation is going to help to deal with that. The MPPF states and is very decisive in that places need to be safe. There has been antisocial behaviour here, and there would be antisocial behaviour in any property, in any estate. Environment, of course, but there are some unique circumstances regarding this property that I want to bring to members' attention. Firstly, it's immediately adjacent 6 properties on its boundary line. That is an extended number of properties than ordinarily would be in a domestic setting. There are actually 11 properties affected on the boundary line if you take one boundary fence within the development. And of course there will be antisocial behaviour from everybody's gardens at times as children go up, and the nature of the children that are there. I don't wish to blame the children at all. But there has been an undertaking in the past from issues that have been with this property, not just by this applicant, but by the previous owners. And it's been talked about a number of times, but not delivered upon. And that is a double fence within that whole boundary of the rear garden, which would help to significantly address those 6 immediately surrounding properties. And if there was a double fence, it would mean that they're always, in the main, repairing their own fence, being that barrier between the 2 properties. I have to admit, part of it has been completed, and the part that's been completed is more successful than the part that's not been. But I would like to have, I would have hoped we would be able to have the discussions tonight with that double fence having been in place, because that would help mitigate and partially redress the situation for the neighbours. But 2 biggest concerns I have, three biggest concerns I have. The first one is it talks about there's no impact on the surrounding character of the area. Well, of course there is, because most people that convert a garage convert a double garage into a single garage, leaving still part of their property as being a home. When you convert a double garage and take both garage doors out, it's a dwelling. It's not a garage anymore. So there is an impact on the appearance and character in the surrounding area, because what was a dwelling and a double garage is now effectively two dwellings, and that's what it looks like from the street scene. But don't take my word for it, because our proposal's going to help you with that. But my biggest problem is the recommendation 11.1, which says, and I quote, and ordinarily it wouldn't be an issue, but given the apology from the applicant, given what I know of the surrounding area as a ward member, given that I know that at times this property is operated without problem whatsoever, so it's not universally bad, I'm hastening to add, but given there have been issues in the past, and they're likely to be in going into the future, the one that concerns me the most is 11.1, which asks us as members tonight to grant the head of planning to determine the planning conditions upon this application. So to address all of that without delaying the meeting, I'm going to put forward a proposal that we defer this item so that members can, because there wasn't a site visit here today on this, so members can actually see the property, see the impact, see the area, and more importantly, all of these 11 properties that I speak about immediately adjacent to the property and the 4 across the road, but also so that when the report comes back for determination, and it does need to come back for determination rather than a straight outright refusal, let's see that the members have had the opportunity to visit the site over and above ward members. The members have had the opportunity.
Could you wind up, please, Councillor?
With it. And secondly, I want to see the planning conditions nailed down to what they are rather than what they might be. And that's no disrespect to our head of planning. It'd be just nice to see them in black and white so that everybody knows what they are prior to a decision being made. So I'd like to propose that we defer this, Chair, for a site visit for some of those issues that I've talked about, for discussions between the applicant and our officers, especially regarding the double fence potentiality, and then to see the conditions before the planning committee before we make a recommendation to approve or refuse at a future date.
Thank you. Councillor Bray.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. I've got a lot of these children's homes in my
Councillor Bray.
Yeah, I'm happy to second that. So some of the arguments I've been there, got the T-shirt on that we heard from some of the residents, and they tend to fall into two groups. There are those that are well managed and never cause anybody any grief, and there are those that are not so well managed and it causes all sorts of concerns. Now, everything that has been said today by the applicant about these children needing a home and needing it, everything that I've totally support that, and we need to support that. But equally, residents also have the right to live in a reasonable amenity. And when, in cases, I'm not saying it's the case in this one, but it was a case in my own patch when children are allowed to run amok, and at 2 o'clock in the morning the police are attending because people are running in streets and things, then obviously that causes grief for people. That's not on the agenda today. But what I would say to, offering a piece of friendly advice from experience on this is, we've heard the comments from the people who seek to manage the home. I wish them well in that, and I wish that I hope that they do keep the firm grip on the running of the home. They said they would. But my comment is firm, and I think the point's been made about Ofsted. When I got Ofsted involved in my patch, I have to say they were very quick to act and were very quick to solve problems. Totally off the planning agenda, I accept that, but I just think with the help of for people, if there are problems, get Ofsted involved and they will help sort them out, because obviously these children have the right to live a good life. So support them out, because obviously these children
Thank you. Councillor Findlay.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I welcome the apology as well. Thank you, Chair. Although I echo what Councillor Cartwright said as well. Doing it without permission, you should have maybe stopped. However, that is the first apology that I've had. We don't take questions, sorry. It's the first apology that we've had in the chamber, I think, in my 4-year term. So that from my perspective, is welcome. What I do just want to mention and sort of reiterate to members is the sort of the child bashing. Is we've heard of the bad children, the stone throwing is sort of child. These are children. I speak from a position of not being a parent, but in a position of responsibility and looking after children that aren't my own. So position to say that some of these children, I understand, need support, care, mentoring, development. So this needs to be done in the right environment. and hopefully that will be considered in the right way. Environment I'm supportive of what you've said, Councillor Cartwright, that a visit to this would be useful. So just then point, a visit to this.
Thank you. Before we conclude, would the planning officer like to make any comments? Thank you. Before we conclude, would the planning officer like to make any comments? We have a motion to defer the. Sorry. We have a motion to defer the.
We've got a motion on the table to defer the matter, but I just wanted to make it clear that obviously the fact that this is a retrospective plan application is not a material planning consideration, isn't something that obviously members, if it does go through, would be able to take into account. And I think that's really sort of the main one that I would want members to go away, and it would be also very. What are the matters that we're deferring this on? The principle of development's there because they've got the certificate of lawful use for the use as a C2, so you're not looking at that. So just making very, very clear for what the reasons are that you're actually deferring this, because we're just looking at the conversion of the garage in the office. So is it just purely on the immunity of that conversion, or is it neighbouring purely on the immunity properties? So it's just making that very clear.
Thank you. Could you confirm, please, Councillor Cartwright?
Like I say, deferring it gives both the applicant and the officers a chance to address the issues that we've talked about, alongside nailing down the actual planning conditions rather than delegated authority for them to be determined at a later date. So that the report, when it's before planning committee members, is black and white what it is. And then everybody understands the position that they're actually voting upon. I don't have an issue with the conditions being, in most cases, being determined thereafter once the committee's made a decision. And I have every respect for officers coming up with the right decision. But I think the applicant, to be fair to the applicant and the neighbouring surrounding community, in this case, to actually have those before the planning committee, as they are, so that we know what they are, it is eminently sensible, hence why I say the site visit is critical, because I completely disagree that it doesn't change the character of the street scene, for the reasons explained earlier, so I'm not going to again. And I think other members need to see how this dwelling sits in amongst its neighbours. There can be discussions about the antisocial behaviour, which is a planning matter in terms of the NPPF and potential mitigation measures, such as the double fence that I talked about. They may wish to consider that and add that to the revised application that comes back before us. All these things are possible, but only possible given the opportunity to do so. That's why I'm saying defer for a site visit and those further talks to take place. That's why I'm saying defer for a site visit.
Councillor Bray.
I'm seconding that on the meeting. The other thing I would say is,
Councillor Bray.
We've passed in the Constitution the other thing I would say is public speakers should not be allowed to speak when the application comes back. However, I do think in this occasion, because of the intervening elections, that probably that when it does come back, we should allow public speakers. Obviously, the election for the committee chair at the time, but that would certainly be my preference.
I would agree with that. Thank you. I would agree with that.
Just
Thank you.
refer to the Democratic Services Manager, because normally you can do that, but it's normally on the discretion of the chair. But I'm not sure Services Manager, because normally case can it is, yeah. So yes, that could be the discretion of the chair. I'm not sure if that's
Thank you.
it is, yeah. So yes, that could be.
Thank you. We have a motion to defer. Proposed by Councillor Cartwright, seconded by Councillor Brake. Would all those in favour please show? Proposed by Councillor Cartwright, seconded by Councillor Brake. Would all those in favour please show? The motion is carried. Thank you. The motion is carried. Thank you.
Just a reminder, taking 11, 12 and 13 together.
Yeah, okay. Item 11, 12 and 13 will be taken together but will be voted on separately. 11, 12 and 13 Item 11, page 59, application 23/20 Treadlow 87/FUL, St James, Church of England Church, Bosworth Road, Sutton Cheney. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please? Bosworth Road, Sutton Cheney. Could I ask the planning officer to present the report, please?
Fairly straightforward. I'm happy to move the recommendation now, unless anybody else has got anything different. Fairly straightforward. I'm happy to move the recommendation now, unless anybody else has got anything.
If I can just come in, I'm perfectly happy with that. It's just we have a speaker, so it's whether the speaker wishes to add anything, that's all.
He's just spoke. He's just spoke.
With the report.
Can we have the mover and seconder again, please?
I'll move it. With the report.
Thank you. Can we have the mover and seconder again? We now take 3 votes. Thank you. We now take 3 votes. The first item, St James Church of England Church, Bosworth Road, Sutton Cheney. The first item. Can we vote on that one, please? Church of England Church, Bosworth Road. All those in favour? Can we vote on that one, please? Thank you. All those in favour? The second one? Thank you. The second one? All those in favour, yes. Thank you. And the third one? All those in favour, yes. Thank you. Thank you. And the third one? Thank you. This is the 1485 Battlefield Trail. This is the 1485 Battlefield Trail. Yes, the motion is carried. Yes, the motion is carried. Yes. Item 14, Appeals Progress. Would the Planning Officer like to present this report, please? Item 14, Appeals Progress. Would the Planning Officer
Thank you, Chair.
like to present this
just
report,
the 2 key ones I wanted to point out, really, both in Earl Shilton. So we're on page 99, so the last page of the report. So first of all, Land East of the Common Barwell was dismissed, so that was an inquiry earlier this year. So first of all, Land dismissed at the end of March, and then equally Land at Crabtree Farm, Hinckley, which was a hearing earlier this year, was for an increase of development on that site was allowed. So there were the 2 I was going to point out. Happy to take any questions. So there were the 2 I was going to point out. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. We will note the report. Please indicate whether you agree by raising your hand. We will note the report. Please indicate whether you agree by raising your hand. That concludes our business for tonight, and I declare the meeting closed at 2028. Thank you. And I declare the meeting closed at 2028. Thank you for everyone attending.